least not yet. We will slowly get there over time as we play more and more games, but since this is at the complete beginner level, what I'm going to play here is I'm simply going to go pawn to d5. Now the reason I'm going to play this move is I attack the horse, but I also avoid any threats on d4. We get knight d4. If I take, I lose my queen. So let's go bishop to e3. My queen guards the pawn and the knight here. I have to take with the pawn, and at this point the material is still balanced, but now I have a slightly compromised pawn structure on the king side. So because I have a compromised pawn structure on the king side here, I need to think about my king and how do I finish the development of the king. Now when I look at this position, one thing that's very important about double pawns, one pawn on top of the other one, is that it does generally create a situation where there is an open file. In this case, this is the open G file. So with the compromised structure, I'm not going to castle this way, but I can also go rook to g1 now and use the file, which therefore means I want to castle my king to the queen side. Now I'd love to play a move like queen d2 and castle, but if I go queen d2, I will hang this pawn on f3. So now that I know that I'm not castling kingside, I'm going to play the move bishop to e2, simply guarding the pawn and preparing to put the queen on either d2 or d3 and castling the king. Get knight to f6, and now I'm going to play the move queen d2. And the reason I'm going to play queen d2 is that for a lot of people, when you play chess, most of your learning is going to be subconscious, going to be your brain sort of connecting the dots and the patterns, especially as it relates to middle games. Openings at some level you can do memorization, but as it relates to middle games and where the pieces belong, a lot of that is sort of subconscious. Now when you do try to castle kingside and you've played an e4 opening, especially when you get a structure with e4 and f3 and a bishop on e3 like this, almost always if you're castling queenside, the queen is going to belong on d2. Now after the game, I'll show you guys an example from the Sicilian and from the modern of where you get the structure of e4 f3. You put the bishop on this e3 square and then you develop the queen and castle to the queen side. So now my opponent goes queen d7, and here I'm going to castle to the queen side, get my king out of the center. I finished my development pretty much. I still have the rook on h1 that's not in the game yet, but at this point I'm doing very well, and my opponent has all these pieces that aren't developed yet. Now black could try to copy me and castle queenside, but with these bishops spying towards the queen side here, that would be a little bit scary. So you got to move pawn to c6. Now this move is actually questionable. The main reason this move is questionable is when you look at the position, black has not finished his development. You have 4 pieces underdeveloped, and when you're underdeveloped, you don't really want to try to open up the center of the board the way that my opponent does, because when you're behind the way that he is, this gives me more chances to attack. It's still going to take 1-2 or 1 move to castle the king. So this king is very much in dire straits, and following that basic logic of your opponent's underdeveloped and trying to open up the center, you want to open up, you want to explode the center of the board here to try to take advantage of the lack of development. So I'm going to take on c6 here. This now opens up the d file for my queen and my rook, and he takes with the queen. Now bishop to b5 is a move that would win the game. This is a basic flash tactic where the knight guards the bishop and the queen gets stuck, but I want to try to follow the theme of taking advantage of development. So what I'm going to play here is this move rook g1. Now this move is not a standard move, but the reason I'm going to play this move is that now if black tries to move the bishop and castle the king here to the king side, I simply take the pawn on g7. So this also completes my development. It's the last move of the sequence. All my pieces have now moved off their original squares, and here my opponent castles queenside. So now I'm going to go for the move knight to b5. My bishop guards the knight, and here I have some very serious threats towards the pawn on a7, and very quickly, as we're about to find out, my opponent is going to lose the game. So my opponent plays the move king to b8 here. And now there are a couple of ways to take advantage and win. Now the most obvious one is to take the pawn on a7 with the bishop or the knight, but here in this situation I have the very nasty move queen to a5, where now my queen attacks the rook, and I'm attacking this pawn on a7 as well, and at this point the game is over. Now this is a theme that you will see a lot when you do get a bishop aiming towards, usually it's the king side, not the queen side. It's a very common idea to bring a queen to the king side to attack here. We get queen to a6, and now I go queen takes rook, checkmate. Now we're going to go into it here. So the first thing I want to show you guys about this game is that if your opponent plays a Sicilian, and I'm not advocating that you play the open Sicilian like this, but one of the common setups here is that you get this situation where you have these 3 pawns, and once again you end up with the bishop on e3. So you get this mini box here with the bishop on e3, and when your opponent castles or plays knight c6, whatever it might be, you always go queen to d2 and castle to the king side. So keep this in mind, because when you get the structure of the pawns with a bishop in this box here, if you want to go queenside, generally you want to put the queen on d2. Now, the other example that I'm going to show you guys here is that after the move e4, black can play d6, d4. You get a modern setup. Just to illustrate it, you get something like bishop e3, knight f6, f3. Let's say black castles, and once again you'll notice that you have this box of 3, and here you also go queen to d2, intending to castle the king to the queen side. So generally the moral of the story is when you get these two pawns like this on f3 and e4 with this bishop here, if you're looking to castle queen side, the queen generally does belong on d2. So now to illustrate it in real time back into the game here, you'll notice that in this position it's a little bit different because there isn't a pawn on g2, but I have the same set of pawns with the bishop on e3, and now I go queen d2 to castle. Now the relevance is not so much that it's like a wow move or anything of that nature, but your brain, if you're watching this video, you should start to internalize that these things do exist in terms of where pieces belong, because the brain subconsciously is putting 2 and 2 together. So that's the first point that I want to make. Now the next point that I was going to make is that in this position when I play queen to a5 with the bishop and the queen attacking the pawn, this is a very common theme, but usually it's a mirror and it's reversed to the king side. So a good example is an opening like the French, just to illustrate this. Actually, I'll show you guys a game that I played recently from Title Tuesday, or close to it, where what happened was my opponent played knight c6, knight f3. We got something like this. I played knight c2, bishop d3. I think he played bishop d7, castles, g3. What did he play here? I think he played like a6. And I think I played rook e1. There's some like knight b4 maybe, or was it knight a7? This was a very recent game, but actually let's not get too deep in the weeds. Let's say knight b4. Knight b4 takes, and now you play something like knight g5. Now it's a little bit different, of course, but still very similar. I'm just going to move the knight to e7 to illustrate the point here, where you'll notice there's a bishop on d3, there's a knight on g5 spying the pawn, and now you go queen to h5, and very quickly there's a big attack on the king side. So to show you guys the first example, you see here there's a bishop, a knight, and the queen attacking. But if we look at this one, it's the exact same thing. It's just shifted to the other side of the board, where I have a knight, a bishop, and a queen attacking this pawn on a7. So it's something to keep in mind if you get a bishop on e3 spying a pawn where your opponent castles, or the example that I just gave with the French, just to show you guys once again, where you get this position. Whoops, didn't mean to play that. Where you get, whoops, takes, knight h5, whereas again it's the same thing. If you have a bishop on the diagonal spying towards the king, or on e3 spying towards the king on the queen side, if you can get a queen on h5 or a5 combined with a bishop, it's very, very powerful. So I think we have time for one more game, so let's start a new